It's so much more fun to climb a mountain slowly and look at all the different plateaus and take in what's around you, then run up quickly and get to the top and miss out on all the stuff that's going on the side of the mountain.
Born in 92 on the block with the Sharks. Come from a different cloth, y'all would get ripped apart. You want it diamond, then you gotta get it in the dark. We dropping nuggets like Carmelo went to Rucker Park. Now we eating from state to state, we scrape the plate. I put my eggs in a basket, took a leap of faith. I took a chance, now we grow and see the impact. Decoding success with special guests, now let's bring Matt.
Dorinda, welcome to the show. Excited to have you. This is our 200th episode, so thank you for being our 200th guest and being a part of this. Yes, we are super excited to have you. I know that you have a new book out. We're going to dive into that in a little bit, but I'm curious. We've put out 200 episodes into the world. We've asked the same question on every single episode. That first question is, how do you personally define success?
That's a good question. And I love that. And it's so funny because I was just thinking about that the other day. I think success for me right now is having freedom. I got to tell you, there's something about being 56 years old, having, lived the life I've lived, experienced the experience I have, raised a beautiful daughter, have sort of physical freedom, spiritual freedom, a little bit of financial freedom, and just to be able to really have ownership over your life. I think that particularly for me as a woman is an incredible thing.
I love that.
And I love the fact too that, if you talk to women 20 years ago, 56, you think, oh, we're winding down. I feel like I'm really in an era where it's just beginning, because I kind of checked off the things that were important and I've done them well. Motherhood, having two great husbands, lived a great life. Now I can really do me. I have a great freedom to just do me.
I love that. There is a very common saying that life starts in your 50s. Is that what you're alluding to?
I think it does, because, you shift a bit. For me, it's, my focus is shifted a bit. I've always been sort of, I think it's because of the way I was raised, very ethnic, and all the women in my family were all givers and nurturers and doers. And how do we make it better? And how do we make it nice? And there's something about being a little selfish and really looking after yourself and doing the things that you want to do that's really brought out a creativeness and a power that I don't know if I really had it before this.
Right.
And COVID helped with that, believe it or not.
Interesting. I'm curious,
really
what would be your advice to a millennial like myself who wants to get everything done right fucking now? Like, I'm 28, everything needs to be done right now. That's the majority of our listeners. What's your advice there? Well,
I think that's a problem, because nothing is immediate, and usually things that are immediate aren't the most satisfying. My whole thing in life is slow and steady wins the race. And everything that is worth obtaining is worth building. It's so much more fun to climb a mountain slowly and look at all the different plateaus and take in what's around you, then run up quickly and get to the top and miss out on all the stuff that's going on the side of the mountain. And I just have found a lot of times, even during my times of struggle, were kind of my biggest growth periods. And I do think that this idea, and I do think you're right about millennials, it's this immediate satisfaction, but within that comes sort of a lot of disillusionment. Because they want to obtain it, then they get it and they don't know what to do with it.
Interesting. I resonate with that for sure. I want to backtrack just a minute.
I also think, just not to interrupt, but I also think millennials don't know, besides freedom, another thing that I think I really enjoy is I enjoy alone time. I don't have to be out there. I don't have to be noticed. I don't have to be seen. I don't have to be engaged. And there's something beautiful about having that sense of peace. Like, I really enjoy myself. Sometimes, like I was thinking this weekend in the Berkshires, my daughter Hannah said to me, I said, "What are you doing for Labor Day weekend?" I said, "I'm doing nothing. I've invited no one up, and I am just going to chill out and enjoy my home and enjoy my parents and enjoy my property and enjoy my sleep and just look around and be in that place for 3 days."
I think a lot
excited.
Alone time is phenomenal. I think personally, from what I've experienced, from the conversations we've had on this show, just from engaging with individuals over the course of 28 years, a lot of people avoid that alone time because they're scared to see what comes up when they are alone.
And I think that's a problem. And I've got to tell you something. I have girlfriends that are like that. And someone said to me, not too long ago, I just don't want to be lonely. And it really struck me as so bizarre because I'm like, I think people are probably their loneliest in situations that aren't correct. I mean, I would rather be alone and happy than in a bad situation with someone that wasn't a good fit for me, that wasn't going to allow me to grow. And because a good partner is almost someone that, you kind of were running in life and all of a sudden you look to the left and they're running with you. It should be seamless. And I think a lot of time, especially with a lot of my girlfriends, they're all about this vision of being, I don't want to be alone. But what does that really mean?
Right.
What does that really mean? I mean, you and I both probably know people that are in relationships that, as my mother always said, my mother said this at one point, if we all took our dirty laundry and put it in the middle of the room, you'd probably walk away with your own.
I love that. Well, just thinking about it, I think if you can't embrace being alone, being in a relationship is going to be extremely unhealthy for you.
Correct. And my most healthy relationships, actually both of them, even though I divorced Hannah's father, we always remained very close and have a bond. And he was such a huge help to me with the passing of my late husband. And we were always a family unit. We always had our eye on the ball there. I just think that it's important to be able to be great when you're together and great with you're apart. And Richard was so good about that. Richard had his own thing, but we really focused on our time together. We sorted it out. We had our date nights and we really made each other the most important things. But then when we weren't together, I had my girlfriends, I had my hobbies, I had my things, and I think that's very important, is to always have a sense of self. Don't lose self.
Absolutely.
And also too, I think which is very important too, is, we live in a world now where everything seems to be so great and everybody seems to have it so much better and everything seems to be, I just don't believe it. I think life is tough. My mother, again, not to keep quoting Diane Segal, she said, 90% of life is monotony. If you have 10% that's joyful, fun, and smooth, you're doing good. Because the truth of the matter is life.
Right.
It's life.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was just cleaning my bathroom before this. Okay. I had the scrubber out. I'm going to do on the Gucci. That's life.
I was going to ask, are you cleaning in the Gucci?
I had on my t-shirt. I was like, oh my God, 10 minutes. So I quickly went on and slapped on the lipstick. But boy, oh boy, I got that bathroom clean.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I want to touch on freedom. That's what you mentioned as your definition of success. How did you find yourself creating that in your life?
It definitely took a while. And I think with each chapter in the book, you see that I grow a little bit more. I learn a little bit more about myself. I say, oops, that's not good. That burnt. I'm not going to touch that again. This was good. And I think you just slowly build. Freedom is about having the confidence and having the intuition to know what is best for you. And also, I've gotten much more comfortable with the word no. I don't feel, I used to be that person that says, oh my God, I can't come. My grandmother died. I broke my arm. My dog died. I would come up with all these excuses and be guilt ridden. Now I just say, I don't want to come tonight. It doesn't work for me. I just did it for an appearance on Sunday. I was getting a sore throat on Saturday and I started to get all this guilt. I thought, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to call and say, I am too tired to go. I will not be my best self if I come, and I don't want to do it. And you know what? What are you going to do with that?
It's respectable. Totally respect. Absolutely. You mentioned the book. Let's dive into that. Make It Nice. Firstly, you have to educate me. Where does Make It Nice come from?
What?
Talk to me about it. Come on.
What? You should be ashamed of yourself.
I'm doing this for our audience
right now. Let me get the leave button here. I cooked, I cleaned, I decorated, I made it nice. That became iconic on that show, The Real Housewives of New York City. But I think it's more of a sentiment than it is a saying, because, you make it nice. It's how you feel about the way you run your life, how you deal with people, how you run your homes. And it could be, I made it nice saying to people, I made it nice, so you better appreciate it. Or I made it nice for you. And I cannot go anywhere in the world, and I mean the world, without someone yelling it out to me. Now, I think they have to have it on my gravestone. I made it nice, cocktails at 7. Because, and I do try to run my life with the best foot forward and the, making the best effort. And I love to host, and I love to have people in my home, and I love to have people around me, and I love to cook. And I just like that whole feeling of bringing people together and making them feel like they're important. They're important in my life.
That's
and I
beautiful.
try to make it nice for them.
There you go. I love that. Now, what do you feel like would be something that people pick up on if they read this book that they might not have known about you?
Well, I think probably the one thing, the recurring theme from people is that, God, now it makes sense. Because I think when you're on a show, especially a reality show, it's kind of like people see the frosting to the cake, but they don't see the cake. Right. And I think now the book has sort of connected the dots. I don't think people really realized how much I moved all over the world, and, really a lot about Richard, other than he was my husband. They didn't realize the journey I had to take with him to, bring him to heaven. And just, why I love hosting, why I love Stone Manor, how important my spirituality is to me, how important my family is. And it sort of kind of brings it all together and say, okay, now I get it. Now I get her. Now it makes sense. Mm-hmm. Also too, like we were saying before, to tie it back to millennials or just what the world is putting out there, you go on reality TV and people love you, people hate you, there's this idea of wanting to be perfect. Well, you see in the book, it wasn't always perfect for me. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay to show my scars. I'm okay with each period and what happened and how I got through it and how I fought the good fight. And I'm hoping that, maybe someone will read it and say, that resonates with me. Wow, I get that.
Exactly. That's how people learn, is through those scars, through those turbulent, that's how they resonate at least. So I'm curious, I know that you talk about them in the book. What do you feel like has been the most turbulent time in your life that shaped you into the woman you are today?
Well, I think there's been many, to tell you the truth. I think the first time I moved abroad and I was in Hong Kong, and it was before cell phones or anything. And I never traveled because I had no money growing up. The biggest trip we took was like Mystic, Connecticut. My mother would be like, wrap up the Shasta Cola. We're going to Mystic for the day. I mean, that was a big trip. And just having to, my husband was working 15 hours a day. It was early years, like 1989. And just really having to be halfway across the world with no family, with no friends, and to wake up in the morning and just venture out and try to make a life. And I really had to grow up, not only as far as trying to occupy my days and figure out my new life, but I was, just then getting married to an investment banker. I was all of a sudden a grown up. Like the days of flitting around Second Avenue and getting a manicure, pedicure were done. And I really grew up during that period of moving all over the world. And I definitely think what definitely was a hard stop for me was when Richard died. Like I really was not happy about that. I mean, I wasn't just sad about it. I was actually pissed off about it because I really thought I'd figured it out. Like I remember at one point when we opened up Stone Manor in 2010, I was thinking, God, this is great. Hannah's going to go to college next year and we're going to move up here, and the house has just been redone and it's beautiful. It's been closed for 3 years, and then we'll travel to London and we'll live in New York. And blah, blah, blah. I had it all figured out, right? And boom, it was gone. I got this person that I just loved so much, and he was really, people say he was my best friend, but he really was my best friend, and I just felt so lucky. And then I had to shift again. And it really, I had to dig very deep, and I had to definitely return to my family to, put that plant back in their soil. And it was a big growing period for me. Right.
What does that grieving process look like, or loss in general, right? Because we're not taught how to handle loss. I mean, there's a million and one things we're never taught.
The truth of the matter is, people aren't taught to talk about it.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, getting divorced, you're almost in this screwed up way celebrated. Like, oh my God, I'm going to set you up with people. Let's go out drinking. Yeah. Right. You're single again. Especially when you're a youngish widow, people don't know how to approach you. They're like, oh my God. I remember once vividly, Richard, died November 16th. And the funny thing is, there's so many people around, and then boom, after you bury him, everybody goes back to their life. And you're like, what? you know, and you have to go back and look at their clothes and deal with all the minutia and take their names off bills, and just everything is a reminder. I remember one day I opened up a drawer and there was reading glasses. I was like, that's fucked up. I mean, excuse my language. I don't mean to choose.
No, you're good. You're good.
You know, I was like, what? You know, that
Yeah.
you just, there's all these reminders constantly of the dead. And, you know, I remember I was walking down Park Avenue one day and this woman came up to us right after Thanksgiving. She said, how are you doing? And I remember just saying to myself, I'm done. I'm done with that question. I said, do you really want to know? Or are you just asking out of politeness? She was like, and she looked at me like, she didn't know what to do. I said, because I don't think you really want to know, because I'm not doing great. I'm lonely. I'm scared. I'm sad. I feel all these emotions and I just don't know what to do with them. And it was really my mother that helped me, you know, guided me through that time. I remember my mom said to me one day when I was just being like so negative, I'm like, it's not fair. It's not fair. I can't believe it. You know, I miss it so much. I can't get through this period. And she was like, you know what, Dorinda? If he came to you 8 years ago and said, I'm going to be with you for 8 years, from beginning to end, I'm going to love you. I'm going to love your child. We're going to have a beautiful life, but then I have to leave. Would you take him? I said, yes. She goes, well, that's what you got. So now let's focus on that. He's dead. You're not. So we can keep doing this, but the outcome's the same. He's dead. And I remember thinking, so you're going to get up every day, wash your face, and take a walk with me. And that's really how it started.
Wow. Back
to home, you know, back to home physically, back to home mentally, and really digging deep into my family values. And, you know, what that is so terrible becomes a blessing, because you do value more people because people leave.
Yeah.
I often say to people, that experience you have when you walk by a graveyard, you're like, ooh, those people didn't make it. And one day my mother said, well, we're all going to be there. No one gets out of that one.
Pretty much, right?
We somehow think we're beyond it. We're beyond death, right? But, you know, life is a series of losses, and we have to take it. You know, culturally, we are taught. It's so funny when you study like the ancient cultures and the older, or even my great grandparents, grandparents, there was sort of a little bit more of an acceptance of both birth and death, in almost a more harmonious way. Whereas I think this generation and even present day, we're a little bit more like immortal in this weird way.
Do you think that's because the life expectancy and the lifespan of individuals has drastically increased versus historical times?
Probably. And, you know, there's so many ways. I mean, I'm a lot older than you, but I remember when I was little, if you heard the word cancer, they were basically dead. I mean, your mother and parent so was cancer. That was it, you know.
Right.
Now, you know, people can get through a lot. Look at what we just went through. I mean, we lost so many good people, but, you know, life moves on.
It does. It does. It's tough. I appreciate the vulnerability as well, Dorinda. I definitely appreciate that. It's tough conversations, you know, so I appreciate that. But if individuals pick up this book right now and they could only take one thing away from it, what would you want that one thing to be?
You're stronger than you think you are.
Where does that come from?
I think my family.
Yeah.
My spirituality. I think that I really look back at it, and I kind of one quick pat myself on the shoulder. I'm like, you're really strong, girl. Like, you can do a lot of stuff. You know, I kind of was proud of myself for a moment. And, you know, you're stronger than you think you are. You'd be surprised how much you can actually take on. You'd be surprised how much you can get through. And you'd be surprised what's on the other side of anything in life.
I love that. What's a question you wish more people would ask you?
What's the question? I think, well, people ask me just about everything, but probably that's a good question. What's the question I think people should ask me?
It's selfish. So if you don't have anything off the top of the head, it's totally okay.
I mean, I think the question that something I could answer differently, but I think something that people don't realize about me, because I present myself so strong and able and stuff, is I'm very vulnerable.
Okay.
Very, like, people don't realize it. I just don't scream and yell about it. Like, if I get hurt, I go right down under. I disappear.
Right.
And people wouldn't know that about me, because I'm very strong and I will stick up for myself, but it cuts deep.
Where does that vulnerability come from?
Probably because I'm extremely loyal.
Okay.
And I'm really committed. So when people don't when people let me down, it like really breaks my heart.
No, which it makes sense. I mean, do you find?
And I don't take on people lightly. Like, I don't have a million friends. I know a lot of people do. I have obviously a lot of people know who I am, but I really have a close, deep set of people that are in my life because I make them my family.
Right.
And I consider them my family. So when that doesn't work out, I get very I get vulnerable about it.
Totally respectable. I'm curious, what's a piece of advice Dorinda received that she didn't want to hear but proved to be true?
Probably from my mom again. What's a piece of it? Oh, probably I would say that you can't do everything.
Okay. Is that from
my
your
mother
mom?
used to say, my mother used to say all the time, it's great to be able to do everything, but sometimes you're a jack of all trades and the master of nothing. And I'm a little bit of that. Like, I put my hand in every single, the little boy that's trying to cover every hole in the thing. That's me. And then I just get tired and I say, I'm done, and the whole dam falls down.
Yeah. Is your mom your biggest influence? You've quoted her numerous times. I love that.
I call her Buddha in a girdle.
Where does that come from in her life?
I talk about in the book how there's this invisible string from my great grandmother to my grandmother to my mother to me to Hannah. We have a very strong matriarchal line of women, very strong Italian women. They kind of let the men believe they were running the house, but we all knew who ran the house.
I love that. That's so awesome. Last question for you.
I always say my mother knew how to wear. I've never seen my mother wear a pair of pants, but she always looked beautiful when my father came home. It was a thing. Like, I gotta get dressed. Your father's coming home. But boy, oh boy, my father listened to my mother. It's true.
I love that. Last question.
She wooed him with the dressing and the little makeup, but at the end of the day, she was commander in chief.
That's amazing. Absolutely love that. Now, if you live to however long you want to live, you did everything you want. There you go. All right. So you make it to 150, you put out as many books as you want, hop on as many podcasts, TV shows, whatever. You've done it all. You've done everything you want to do. But if you could only be remembered for one piece of advice, what would that be?
Kindness.
Kindness. What about kindness?
And being charitable and being aware of others. I always say to Hannah, you gotta Richard said one of the most amazing things to me once. And I think it's why his funeral was just packed with people from all steps of life, from you could imagine, the parking attendant, everybody was there. He said, everybody has a story to tell, everybody, but it's up to you to stop and listen.
Agreed.
Because, if there's the whole thing, I see you, when you see people and you make time to see people, and I think people forget that, even anybody, you just take that moment to connect, it is a game changer. I think it's probably the best negotiating tool anybody could ever have, because the minute you make a connection with someone, they'll listen to you more and they'll honor you more and they'll trust you more. I see it all the time.
Absolutely. What does it take to be kind and to see people in that sense? I mean, it's really hard for people to listen these days. Everyone wants to be the one talking. So I'm curious, what do you feel like?
You just said, I think you got to listen and you have to be aware of their situation and be sensitive to the situations they're in.
Right. That's powerful.
You can't be, that old poem, you got to be able to sit with kings and queens and paupers too. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's just luck where we are, really. I mean, we look what's going on in the world right now, and you're heartbroken about it. You look what's going on in Afghanistan and just all the different situations we have going on, soldiers dying and people being stranded and people fighting, and that could be us. It's just the luck of the draw.
Absolutely. Well, Dorinda, first and foremost, congratulations on the book. I appreciate you hopping on here for episode 200. I know I need to let you go.
That was like a test. Did I pass?
You passed with flying colors. I mean, I could have kept this going, but I want to make sure that I keep your promptness.
Make it nice. Your books are sold, and the audio is on is in my voice.
Awesome. So you did the Audible as well. That's very cool.
I also do late night phone calls. No, I'm kidding you.
I love it.
That was very old school. I'm probably not appropriate to say that anymore. I'm sure I'm going to be part of the cancel culture, but that's okay.
I love it. I'm going to make sure that the link to get the book is in the show notes, as well as socials, websites, all that good stuff. But just want to express my gratitude again. Congrats on the book, Dorinda. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Bye now.
Born in 92 on the block with the sharks. Come from a different cloth, y'all would get ripped apart. You wanted